My daughter looked me straight in the eye and said those words in front of 23 people at what was supposed to be our family Thanksgiving. Just stand, Dad, there's no seat left. I'd driven 4 hours to get there, brought wine and flowers, and watched my own daughter tell me to stand at my own family dinner. I smiled and stood quietly behind everyone while they ate the meal I was unknowingly paying for. The next morning changed everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The drive to Amanda's house in Boulder had taken me through some of Colorado's most beautiful fall scenery. 4 hours of golden aspens and mountain views, listening to classic rock and feeling grateful that my daughter had finally invited me to a proper family Thanksgiving. It had been 3 years since the divorce, 3 years of eating alone or grabbing Chinese takeout while watching football, 3 years of wondering if I'd lost my family along with my marriage. Amanda's text had come 2 weeks earlier. Dad, we're hosting Thanksgiving this year. The whole family will be there. Can you come? The whole family. My chest had swelled with hope reading those words. Maybe this was the healing we all needed, the chance to rebuild what the divorce had damaged. I'd spent the morning shopping for the perfect wine, a $50 bottle of Camus Cabernet that Amanda had mentioned liking during one of our infrequent dinners. The flowers were fresh from the florist, a beautiful autumn arrangement that cost more than I usually spent on groceries in a week, but this was important. This was family. Amanda's house sat in one of Boulder's most expensive neighborhoods, a sprawling contemporary with mountain views and a 3-car garage. I'd helped with the down payment 2 years ago when she and Derek were house hunting, $40,000 from my retirement savings because I believed in supporting my children's dreams. The driveway was packed with cars I recognized. Derek's BMW, my ex-wife Patricia's Mercedes, my brother-in-law's truck. Through the big windows, I could see people moving around inside, the warm glow of family gathering that I'd been missing for years. Amanda answered the door wearing a designer dress I didn't recognize, her smile bright but somehow not reaching her eyes. Dad, you made it. She hugged me quickly, efficiently, the kind of hug you give someone you're supposed to love but don't particularly want to touch. Wouldn't miss it, sweetheart, I said, handing her the wine and flowers. These are for you. Oh, you didn't have to, she said, though her eyes lit up at the expensive wine label. Come on in, everyone's here. I stepped into the chaos of family gathering and immediately felt the shift in energy. Conversations didn't stop exactly, but they muted, became more careful. My ex-wife Patricia looked up from her conversation with Amanda's mother-in-law, gave me a polite nod that could have frozen Colorado in July. Bill, Derek approached with his politician's smile, the same one he'd worn when asking me to co-sign their mortgage. Glad you could make it. How was the drive? Beautiful, I replied, looking around the room filled with people I'd once considered family. My brother-in-law Mike was there with his wife and kids, Amanda's college friends who'd always called me Mr. B, Derek's parents, and several other couples I didn't recognize. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach sink. Everyone was paired off, couples and families clustered together, but there was no obvious place for me. No saved seat, no dad, come sit here, no acknowledgement that I belonged anywhere specific in this gathering. Can I get you a beer? Derek asked, already moving toward the kitchen. Oh, sure, thanks. As Derek disappeared, I stood in the living room feeling like a guest at my own daughter's life. The conversations flowed around me, people catching up on jobs and kids and vacation plans, the the kind of comfortable family chatter I'd been excluded from since the divorce. Amanda was in the kitchen directing the final meal preparations with military precision. The dining room table was set for exactly 23 people, elegant place settings with fall-themed centerpieces, everything perfectly coordinated and expensive looking. "Looks incredible, Amanda," I said, admiring the spread. "You've really outdone yourself." "Derek's mom helped with the planning," she replied without looking up from the turkey she was carving. "This kind of event takes months to coordinate properly." Event, she called Thanksgiving dinner an event, like it was a corporate function rather than family gathering. Derek returned with my beer, a craft IPA that probably cost $8 at the liquor store. "Dad, we should probably start getting everyone seated. Amanda's been planning this timing down to the minute." I followed the crowd toward the din. Room, expecting Amanda to direct me to a seat, maybe save me a spot near her, or at least acknowledge that I needed a place at the table I'd helped pay for. Instead, I watched 23 people settle into 23 chairs while I stood at the edge of the room holding my beer, feeling increasingly invisible. "Amanda," I said quietly, "where should I sit?" She looked up from arranging serving dishes, her face showing irritation at being interrupted. The entire room fell silent, 23 people suddenly paying attention to a conversation none of them wanted to witness. "Just stand, Dad, there's no seat left." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked around the room, seeing faces that ranged from embarrassed to uncomfortable to completely indifferent. My ex-wife Patricia studied her napkin with sudden fascination. Derek's parents whispered to each other behind their hands. My brother-in-law Mike looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. "I'm sorry, what?" I managed, thinking I'd misheard. "There's no seat left," Amanda repeated, her tone carrying the kind of exasperated patience you'd use with a slow child. "We planned for 23, and there are 23 people seated. Just stand behind someone." 23 people seated, and I wasn't one of them. I'd driven 4 hours to attend my daughter's Thanksgiving dinner, and she expected me to stand like wait staff while everyone else enjoyed the meal. The silence stretched uncomfortably. A few people shifted in their chairs, but nobody offered to give up their seat. Nobody suggested getting another chair from somewhere. Nobody acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, the father of the hostess deserved a place at the table. "Of course," I said quietly, forcing a smile. "No problem." I stood behind Derek's chair, my beer growing warm in my hand, while everyone else dove into the feast. The conversation gradually resumed, people passing dishes and complimenting Amanda's cooking, carefully avoiding any mention of the fact that one person was standing while everyone else ate. From my position behind Derek, I had a perfect view of the entire table. I watched my ex-wife enjoy wine that probably cost more per bottle than I spent on groceries in a week. I watched Amanda's friends Instagram their perfectly plated meals. I watched Derek's parents discuss their upcoming cruise to the Mediterranean. "This turkey is incredible, Amanda," someone said from the far end of the table. "Thank you, I had it specially ordered from that organic farm in Nawat. Cost a fortune, but you can really taste the difference." Cost a fortune. I wondered who was paying for this organic turkey, this elaborate spread, this event that had taken months to plan. "And these flowers," Derek's mother gushed, holding up my autumn arrangement. "Where did you find something so beautiful?" Oh, those, Amanda waved dismissively. Dad brought those. The way she said it, like I'd picked them from a gas station rather than spent an hour at the florist selecting the perfect arrangement. A few people glanced up at me with polite smiles before returning to their conversations. I stood there for 90 minutes while 23 people enjoyed Thanksgiving dinner. 90 minutes of watching my family eat while I held my warm beer and tried to maintain what was left of my dignity. 90 minutes of being invisible in my own daughter's house. When dessert was served, 3 different kinds of pie with fresh whipped cream, I finally spoke up. I think I'm going to head out, I announced quietly. Already, Amanda looked up from cutting pie, but her tone suggested relief rather than disappointment. Well, thanks for coming, Dad. Thanks for coming, like I'd been a casual acquaintance dropping by for a few minutes rather than her father, who'd driven 4 hours to spend Thanksgiving with his family. Drive safely, Derek added, not getting up from his chair. Traffic's probably getting heavy. I made my round saying goodbye, a series of polite hugs and great to see yous from people who just watched me stand through an entire meal without saying a word in my defense. My ex-wife Patricia gave me a particularly cold farewell. Take care of yourself, Bill, she said with the tone of someone dismissing a problematic employee. Amanda walked me to the door, the perfect hostess seeing off her guest. Thanks for the wine and flowers, Dad, she said, already turning back toward her remaining guests. Maybe we can do dinner sometime soon. Sometime soon, the same vague promise she'd been making for 3 years. I drove home through the dark Colorado mountains feeling something I hadn't experienced since the divorce, complete clarity about my relationship with my daughter. For 3 years, I'd been trying to rebuild our connection, accepting her limited availability, her short phone calls, her carefully managed visits. I'd told myself she was busy, that divorce was hard on kids even when they're adults, that time would heal the distance between us. But tonight had stripped away all my illusions. Amanda hadn't invited me to Thanksgiving because she wanted me there. She'd invited me because she needed something from me, something I'd discover soon enough. The 4-hour drive home gave me plenty of time to think. I thought about all the ways I'd supported Amanda since her childhood, the college tuition I'd paid in full, the down payment on her house, the car payments I'd covered when she was between jobs, the credit cards I'd helped pay off, the wedding I'd funded to the tune of $38,000. I thought about Patricia's role in all this, the way she'd poisoned our children against me during the divorce proceedings, painting me as the villain even though she'd been the one having an affair with her yoga instructor. By the time I pulled into my driveway at midnight, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: freedom. Freedom from the exhausting effort of trying to maintain relationships with people who clearly didn't want me in their lives. I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning I woke to a notification on my phone, a charge to my American Express card, Amanda's Catering Services, Boulder, Co., $4,247.83. I stared at the screen, reading the charge 3 times before the full implications sank in. Amanda had charged the entire Thanksgiving dinner to my credit card. The organic turkey, the expensive wine, the elaborate decorations, the catered side dishes, everything I'd watched 23 people enjoy while I stood behind them like hired help. She'd used my credit card number, which she had access to from when I'd helped her with emergency expenses over the years. But this wasn't an emergency. This was theft, pure and simple. I called American Express immediately. I need to dispute a charge, I told the customer service representative. What's the nature of the dispute, Mr. Harrison? Unauthorized use of my card. The charge was made without my knowledge or permission. I see the charge here. Amanda's catering services for $4,247. I can start a dispute investigation immediately and issue a temporary credit while we investigate. Please do. Within 20 minutes, the charge was reversed and my card was flagged for suspicious activity. Amanda's catering company would receive a chargeback notice within 48 hours. But that was just the beginning. I opened my laptop and logged into my phone account. Amanda was still on my family plan, something I'd maintained since she was in college because it saved her money. I removed her line immediately. Her phone would stop working by the end of the day. Next, I called my insurance agent. Amanda was still listed as a beneficiary on my life insurance policy, along with being covered under my health insurance plan through my retiree benefits. Both changes took 15 minutes to complete. Then I opened my banking app and removed Amanda as an authorized user on all my accounts. No more emergency access to Dad's money when unexpected expenses arose. The final step was the most satisfying. I blocked her number on my phone. By noon, I'd systematically severed every financial and communication connection between Amanda and myself. For the first time since my divorce, I felt completely in control of my own life. My phone started ringing around 2 p.m. Unknown numbers, probably Amanda trying to reach me from different phones after discovering her line had been cut off. I let them all go to voicemail. By evening, I had 7 voicemails. I listened to them with the detached interest of someone observing a fascinating experiment. Voicemail 1: Dad, my phone got cut off somehow. Call me back at Derek's number. Voicemail 2: Dad, what happened to my phone? And why did the catering company call about a payment issue? Voicemail 3: Dad, this is really urgent. Please call me back. Voicemail 4: Dad, I know you're angry about something, but we need to talk. This is affecting my business. Voicemail 5: Dad, you're being ridiculous. The catering charge was obviously just a mistake on their part. Voicemail 6: Dad, Derek says you're having some kind of breakdown. You need to fix this immediately. Voicemail 7: Dad, if you don't call me back by tonight, I'm driving to your house tomorrow. I deleted all 7 voicemails without responding. The next morning, Derek's BMW pulled into my driveway. Through my kitchen window, I watched Amanda march to my front door with the determined stride of someone accustomed to getting her way through intimidation. She knocked loudly, then rang the doorbell repeatedly. Dad, I know you're in there. Open the door. I continued reading my newspaper and drinking my coffee. Dad, this is insane. You can't just cut me off like this over some misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. She was calling theft a misunderstanding. Well, 20 minutes of increasingly frantic door pounding and bell ringing, Derek joined her on the porch. Their voices carried clearly through my windows. Maybe he's not here, Derek suggested. His car's in the driveway and I can see light in the kitchen. He's avoiding me. Well, you did charge $4,200 to his credit card without asking. It was Thanksgiving, family dinner. He should have been honored to pay for it. Honored to pay for a dinner where they made me stand for 90 minutes. Amanda, you know how this looks, right? You invited him to dinner, made him stand while everyone else ate, then charged him for the privilege. Whose side are you on here, Derek? I'm just saying maybe you could have handled this differently. They argued on my porch for another 10 minutes before finally giving up and leaving. I watched Derek's BMW disappear down my street while I finished my coffee in peaceful silence. Over the next week, Amanda tried every method of contact she could think of. She sent emails that I deleted without reading. She had mutual friends call me, people who awkwardly tried to mediate a situation they didn't fully understand. She even had Patricia call, which was perhaps the most surreal conversation of my post-divorce life. Bill, you need to fix whatever's happening with Amanda, my ex-wife demanded. She's beside herself. I'm sure she is. This is about Thanksgiving, isn't it? You're upset because there wasn't a seat for you. Among other things. For God's sake, Bill, it was just a dinner party. You're acting like a child. Patricia, Amanda stole $4,000 from me to pay for a dinner she made me stand through. If that's childish to complain about, then I'm happy to be childish. She didn't steal anything. She used your card by mistake. There's no mistake about using someone's credit card without permission. That's called theft. Patricia hung up on me, which seemed appropriate given our relationship history. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I received a certified letter from Amanda. Not an apology, not an explanation, but a legal demand. Dad, the letter began, your recent actions have caused significant financial hardship for our family. The disruption to my phone service has damaged my business relationships. The credit card dispute has harmed my catering company's reputation. I need you to reverse these actions immediately and compensate me for the damages caused. Compensate her for the damages caused by my refusing to let her steal from me. The letter continued, I understand you were upset about the seating arrangements at Thanksgiving, but your response has been completely disproportionate. As your daughter, I shouldn't have to explain why family members support each other during important events. Family members support each other, like making your father stand through Thanksgiving dinner, then charging him for the privilege. I threw the letter away and went about my day. Christmas came and went without a word from Amanda. I spent it with my neighbor Frank and his wife, two people who appreciated my company and treated me like family. We exchanged thoughtful gifts, shared a home-cooked meal where everyone had a seat at the table, and watched football together while complaining about the refs. It was the best Christmas I'd had in years. In January, I heard through my brother-in-law Mike that Amanda's catering business was struggling. Apparently, the word had gotten out in Boulder's tight-knit social circles about her charging family members without permission. When your business depends on trust and reputation, stories about stealing from your own father tend to hurt repeat bookings. Derek had been pushing Amanda to apologize and rebuild our relationship, but she doubled down on her victimhood narrative. According to Mike, she was telling anyone who'd listen that her father had abandoned the family over a simple misunderstanding about dinner expenses. I felt no satisfaction in her business troubles, but I felt no sympathy either. Actions have consequences, even when you're someone's daughter. By March, my life had settled into a new rhythm, without the constant drama of trying to maintain a relationship with someone who clearly resented my existence. I had more time and energy for things I actually enjoyed. I joined a hiking group for seniors, started volunteering at the animal shelter, took a woodworking class at the community college. For the first time since my divorce, I was building a life based on what I wanted rather than what other people expected from me. The call came on a Tuesday evening in April, not from Amanda, but from Derek. "Bill, I need to tell you something," he began, his voice carrying a gravity I'd never heard before. "Amanda's in the hospital." My heart stopped. Whatever had happened between us, she was still my daughter. "What happened?" "A car accident yesterday evening. She's stable, but it was touch and go for a while. Broken ribs, punctured lung, some internal bleeding." "Which hospital?" "Boulder Community. Bill, she's been asking for you." I hung up and sat in my kitchen chair, staring at the phone. For months, I'd been completely no contact with Amanda, building a new life free from her drama and manipulation. Part of me wondered if this was another scheme, another way to guilt me back into her life and her bank account. But if it wasn't, if she was genuinely hurt and asking for me, what kind of father would I be to ignore that? I drove to Boulder that night, arriving at the hospital around 10 p.m. Derek met me in the waiting room, looking haggard and exhausted. "How is she?" "Better than yesterday, but still critical. The doctors think she'll make a full recovery, but it's going to take time." He led me through sterile hospital corridors to Amanda's room. She looked small in the hospital bed, connected to machines that beeped and hummed, her face pale and drawn but unmistakably relieved when she saw me. "Dad," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks, "I thought you weren't coming." I sat in the chair beside her bed, taking her hand carefully to avoid disturbing the IV lines. "I'm here, sweetheart." "Dad, I'm sorry." The words came out in a rush, like she'd been rehearsing them. "About Thanksgiving, about the money, about everything. I was awful to you, and I've been awful to you for years." I squeezed her hand gently. "Let's not worry about that now. Just focus on getting better." "No, I need to say this. When I was lying in that car yesterday, bleeding and scared and thinking I might die, all I could think about was how I'd treated you, how I'd taken you for granted, how I'd been so cruel on Thanksgiving, how I'd stolen from you and then acted like you were wrong to be upset." She paused, struggling with emotions and pain medication. "Derek made me see it, Dad. He said no normal person makes their father stand through Thanksgiving dinner, then charges him for the meal. He said I'd become someone he didn't recognize, someone who treated the people who love me like ATMs instead of family." "Amanda, I know you probably don't forgive me, and I understand why you cut me off. I deserved it. But if you'll let me, I want to try to be the daughter you deserve instead of the one you've been stuck with." I looked at my daughter, broken and vulnerable in her hospital bed, finally acknowledging the truth about how she'd treated me. Part of me wanted to protect myself, to maintain the boundaries that had brought me so much peace over the past months. But she was my daughter, and sometimes people need to nearly lose everything to understand what actually matters. We can work on it, I told her, but things are going to be different going forward. I know I want them to be different. Over the next few weeks, as Amanda recovered, we began rebuilding our relationship on new terms. She insisted on paying me back for the Thanksgiving dinner, money she scraped together by selling jewelry and working extra catering gigs. She added me back to her phone contacts, but accepted that I wouldn't be resuming any financial support until she proved she could treat me with respect. Most importantly, she started acknowledging the pattern of behavior that had led to our estrangement, the way she'd used guilt and manipulation to extract money from me, the way she'd treated my generosity as an entitlement rather than a gift, the way she'd allowed Patricia's resentment to poison her own relationship with me. It wasn't easy and it wasn't fast. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. But slowly, carefully, we began building something new, a relationship based on mutual respect rather than financial obligation, on genuine affection rather than duty and guilt. The turning point came 6 months later at Amanda's birthday dinner. She'd made reservations at a nice restaurant and explicitly told me she was paying for her own celebration. "Dad," she said as we waited for our entrees, "I need you to know something. Before the accident, I thought you were being dramatic and unreasonable about Thanksgiving. I actually told people you were having some kind of breakdown." "I remember. But you weren't having a breakdown. You were standing up for yourself. You were refusing to let me treat you badly anymore." She paused, looking directly at me. "You were being a better father than I was being a daughter." "Amanda, let me finish. Making you stand through that dinner was cruel. Charging it to your card was theft. And then acting like you were wrong to be upset about it was just evil. There's no other word for it." She reached across the table and took my hand. "You raised me better than that, Dad. You taught me to be kind and fair and grateful. Somewhere along the way, I forgot those lessons, but you reminded me by showing me what happens when you treat people badly enough, they stop letting you treat them badly." The woman sitting across from me wasn't the same person who'd told me to stand at Thanksgiving dinner. This was someone who'd learned the difference between being loved and being tolerated, someone who understood that relationships require respect to survive. "I'm proud of you," I told her, meaning it completely. "For almost getting myself killed in a car accident. For having the courage to change." We finished dinner that night as a real father and daughter, not as an ATM and its beneficiary. She paid the check as promised, left a generous tip, and hugged me goodbye with genuine affection. As I drove home through the Colorado mountains, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us to this point. Amanda's cruelty on Thanksgiving had forced me to make the hardest decision of my fatherhood, choosing my own dignity over my daughter's comfort. It would have been easier to let her keep stealing from me, keep treating me badly, keep taking my love for granted. But sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their worst behavior. By standing up for myself that day after Thanksgiving, canceling the charge, cutting off her phone, removing her from my accounts, I'd forced Amanda to confront the truth about how she was treating me. Without Dad's money as a safety net, without being able to manipulate me through guilt and obligation, she'd had to face the consequences of her choices. The hospital bed had been her rock bottom, but my refusal to continue being her victim had been what made rock bottom possible. Today, Amanda and I have the best relationship we've had since she was a child. She pays her own bills, treats me with respect, and includes me in her life because she wants to, not because she needs something from me. Derek tells me she's a different person now, someone who appreciates what she has instead of constantly demanding more. Her catering business recovered once word spread that she'd made things right with her family, that the money troubles had been resolved honorably. And me, I learned that sometimes the best way to love someone is to stop letting them hurt you. That dignity isn't negotiable, even with family. That standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. The last time someone told me to just stand because there was no seat left, I stood up in a different way entirely. I stood up for my own worth, my own dignity, my own right to be treated with basic human respect. Sometimes standing up means sitting down. Sometimes walking away means coming back stronger. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is showing them who they really are by refusing to pretend they're someone better. Amanda learned that lesson the hard way, but she learned it, and that made all the pain worth it. That Thanksgiving dinner cost me $4,247, but it bought me something priceless, my self-respect and eventually a daughter who actually deserves my love. Some prices are worth paying, even when you don't know it at the time. If you liked this story, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.